I have been fighting for democracy since I was 13 years old. When I grew up in Zimbabwe, we had well-equipped schools. We had houses. We had food. We had jobs. The only thing that we lacked was dignity, justice, and the right to vote. We were forced to walk in the gutter while only white people were allowed to walk on the sidewalk. It was a criminal offense for us to walk next to the shops. We are not allowed to walk into a supermarket and buy the goods that we wanted. We were forced to buy our goods outside a supermarket, in an alley, from a window. This kind of discrimination and untold loss of dignity gave birth to our African revolution to liberate ourselves. We were kidnapped from schools to join the liberation struggle. Since some of us were still young, we became child soldiers. But this is not the story I'm here to tell. I survived the liberation struggle, and I joined the labor movement accidentally because of sexual harassment. I had a boss who thought he had the right to touch my body without my consent. He used his position to stop me from getting justice. It was allowed at law because women were treated like Africans were treated before the liberation struggle. We had no rights. So I became a trade union leader in search of justice. But this is not the story I'm here to tell you either. I've been kidnapped, had my teeth knocked out. I have stitches on my skull. I've been beaten. I've been detained again and again for only demanding the respect of the people's rights in letter and spirit. This is the price I was willing, and this is the price I'm still willing to pay for democracy. But why? Because I believe in democracy. I believe in the people. The people have a right to be heard. The people need their concerns addressed and their needs met. My job and the jobs of parliamentarians world over is to make sure we deliver democracy to the people. We, as parliamentarians, are the voices of the people in the corridors of power. As a parliamentarian, I need to speak the people from an informed and act from an informed perspective. I need to speak the people's language, feel their pain, and express their emotions. I can only do that by working alongside the people. If I'm to understand their problems and help find solutions, I need to get out of my comfort zone. Solutions to problem in any community lie within the community. The communities know the problems better than anybody else. That includes me. I've witnessed this so many times. I start by listening. It's a bit of a lost art, especially amongst politicians. People want leaders that listen, help find solutions, and transform their lives by asking the right questions. It sounds simple. It should be, but it's not. This is the story I want to tell you. In Zimbabwe, our public transport vehicles are called combis. When a combi driver went over a pothole, and by the way, we have plenty of them, lost control and killed a pedestrian, the people called me for us to find a solution to avert any further deaths. I listened and I asked questions. And in the absence of road maintenance, we resolved that we are going to fill up those potholes using charcoal that was easily accessible within our community. We are all out there, very sweaty, dirty, and filling up the potholes. And the police came to ask what we're doing. And before I knew it, I was arrested for impersonating a member of parliament. Can you imagine? I was barefoot, sweaty, dirty, pitch black from head to toe from the charcoal, filling up the potholes with the people. It was an offense. But why? It is because I wasn't behaving the way people perceive a parliamentarian and a leader should behave. I'm supposed to be in an air-conditioned office, away from the people, remote, and very cool. I believe the time has come for parliamentarians to lead by example. People want to have leaders that lead by example. In my community, there's very high unemployment. And then a number of people died of HIV and AIDS. Some years ago, I had the opportunity to tour my constituency. I was taken around homes, and I saw people bedridden, dying from this epidemic. It was so heartbreaking to look at lives wilting away because people were starving and dying. Amazingly, the community could not and would not let this epidemic kill us without dignity. Hell no. The people refused. What did I do? I asked questions and I listened. What happened? The women came together and formed home-based care groups to look after the sick And I got them training on what HIV/AIDS was, how to look after the sick, and how to make sure they get their drugs on time. But if you're sick and you don't eat, medication doesn't work. The community decided that we should start a feeding scheme. The scheme needed funding, which I did not have. But it was harvesting time. And there were fields that were not harvested. The community asked me to go and ask the landowners for them to harvest their crops. And we use those crops to feed the sick. What did I do? I listened and I spoke to the landowners. They agreed. But that wasn't enough. We complemented the crops that we got from the landowners with community school gardens. Those gardens were looked after by the kids during the school days, during the week. And weekends, the community came in to look after those gardens. I also have a school in my constituency. It had an alarming number of kids that were abused and HIV positive. Some of them were on antiretroviral drugs, and others were not. Hunger stopped them from taking the drugs. That was the benefit of the feeding scheme that we studied in the school. The community decided that we start a feeding scheme in the school and feed all these kids in this government school, regardless of their status. We fed them. I listen and I ask questions. Every Wednesday's afternoon in our parliament, we have what we call the question and answer session. Unscripted questions asked by us to government ministers. It is broadcast live. So I get questions from all over the country. And then I ask the questions to the respective ministers, and I get the answers. I record my questions via WhatsApp, WhatsApp. And record the answers again. And forward those recordings to the people that gave me the questions, for them to know how their questions were answered. My job is to listen, take questions, and follow up. This is my fundamental role as a parliamentarian. A fundamental role in democratic representation at its highest, connecting the people to the executive arm of government. We, parliamentarians, have the power to bring change and make a real difference. But we don't often use it. I try never to forget who I represent. Others should not either. After all, the government is the people. Democracy, government of the people, by the people, for the people.